Well, good afternoon. This is Bob Ferguson, and I'm very, very privileged this afternoon to have my friend, Dr. Chris Jones, here with me. Chris has got quite a story, and I thought it would be important for people to understand what has just happened, the implications of it. And I think as citizens, particularly citizens of Iowa, I think we need to understand the dynamics so that if we want something different to happen, we need to raise our voices. So, Chris, thanks so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
It's great. So, Chris, you're a research engineer, and you have been for many years responsible for the system of water quality sensors that the University of Iowa maintains. And I've had the pleasure of listening to you speak many, many times. And every time I've come away impressed with the depth of your knowledge and also your understanding of the complex system of dynamics between agriculture and culture and politics. And I think that's what we really want to talk about today, isn't it?
Sure. And so everybody should know I'm not a great scientist. I'm if you look at my scientific output, it's not, going to blow anybody away. But, I have published some papers and done some work. And so, we all try to find our niche, right? And I think my niche here was communicating that information to general audiences and connecting the dots for them about why we have the condition that we have here with our water and the rest of our natural resources. And so that was kind of the sweet spot that I found myself in here finally at the end of my career. And so that's sort of what I'm about.
Yes, well, and we appreciate it. And you've authored a book called Swine Republic. I think guaranteed to raise a few eyebrows, and but not at all untruthful. So
Never underestimate the value of a good title.
Absolutely, absolutely. So quite a few things have happened recently. All of them not at all to my liking. So tell us a little bit about what has happened, and you'll be here next Tuesday at the Fairfield Public Library talking about your book, talking about the issues of water quality, the complex issues of water quality. So let's start us out.
Well, yeah, about 6 weeks ago now, I was told by the university that there were a couple legislators over in Des Moines that didn't like the blog and didn't think it was appropriate for the blog to continue on the university domain while the university was over there in Des Moines asking for money for various programs. And so this was communicated to me. I wasn't surprised to hear this. I mean, I knew that a fair number of people did not like what I was writing there, and in fact, maybe hated it. And so this didn't come to as a complete surprise. And so I agreed with my supervisor that I would write one more piece and then take the blog or consider taking the blog to an off-campus domain. I wrote the last piece and I very gently implied that this pressure was being applied from the legislature to stop or discontinue the blog. And that particular sentence, two sentences, they told me I had to edit that out, that there shouldn't be any mention of the pressure from the legislature. And so I said, well, I disagreed with that. I didn't think this was a free speech issue. I thought it was an ethics issue. And where I had somebody telling me that I couldn't mention something that objectively happened. And I thought that called to question the integrity of the institution when we start to tell researchers that they can't mention something that objectively happened. And so, but anyway, out of respect for my boss, I agreed to edit the piece, which I did. And I posted it, and then just decided that I was going to retire. I felt like if I took the blog to an off-campus domain, I always was going to be worried that what I wrote would affect people that I knew working at IIHR in a negative way. And so I just thought the time was right, that the universe was trying to tell me something, that maybe it should come to an end. And so it did. And then about two or three weeks later, one of the legislators that wanted the blog gone also sponsored a bill to eliminate the censor network, and or to defund it effectively. And at this point, I thought, well, this just isn't right. That somebody needed to speak up about that. And so that's what I've been doing for the last few weeks here. And, honestly, it's a little exhausting, but the legislature is home now, and that's all done. And so that's basically the story in a nutshell. And, purely coincidence, this all happened with the release of my book, but it undeniably, it's created interest in the book.
So tell us a little bit about the book.
When I came to the University of Iowa in 2015, they encouraged me to set up a website, and all research staff were allowed to do that. And I did, and a very smart woman helped me do that. Jackie Stoles lives here in Iowa City, and she's retired now too. And so in my previous jobs, I had done some writing. And so I always felt like I was an adequate writer. Okay. And I think writing is, you can never really know how good you are. I think if you think you're great, I really have my doubts if you are great. I think you just never know. You just can't know. But I did think I was adequate. And so I decided to set up a page on my website that included essays, blog posts, we call them now. And so I started writing essays for the webpage, fairly early on, I think in about 2016, but nobody read them. I would look at the clicks on the sites, and maybe 3 people had read them over 6 months. And so I really didn't write very frequently. Then I wrote one in late 2018 or early 2019, and it was called This Is What Happened. And it's basically a history of Iowa agriculture and how it related to what we saw in our water quality in the present day. And I did think that piece was good, and so I emailed it to a number of people in my address book. And that one did get quite a few reads, and so that sort of launched the rest of them. I started writing pretty regularly after that, and so I thought that I was very pleased with the readership I got by the end here.
So tell us about the premise of the book, and let's zoom back and really talk about what has happened with water quality, because when we were putting together the research for the 2009 Go Green plan here in Fairfield, I think we were very concerned that there were 350 impaired waterways in Iowa, and now I think there's double that or more. And as you pointed out to me when we were speaking before we started recording, this is a very complex issue. It's not just an issue of the farmers, it's a complex issue, and it's one that has had a devastating impact on the water quality and the quality of life. So let's dive into that.
So yes, and I should apologize. You asked me about the book, the last question, and I didn't even get to that. But the book is a collection of essays, both some that have been on the blog and some that haven't, and then a couple of other longer chapters that discuss, again, the history of it, and then my ideas for the path forward. As far as the impaired waters, I think the real thing of interest in that is not so much the number of impaired waters, but the fact that we have only 15 stream stretches in the entire state of Iowa, a state with 70,000 miles of perennial streams. We only have 15 stream stretches that meet all their designated uses under the Clean Water Act. And so, yes, we have the 700 or so impaired waters, but most of our impairments are from nitrogen and phosphorus, which are not even, we don't even have standards for those. And so if we had nutrient standards for streams, that is for nitrogen and phosphorus, to protect aquatic life, we could probably impair just about every stream in the state of Iowa. But of course, there's strong resistance to nutrient standards for both lakes and streams. And thus, we have the impaired waterways that we have. But I think the number that we have, might be a little deceiving. And when you consider that we could probably impair all of them if we had nutrient standards.
Yep. So what does this all mean for the public? And what can the public do about this? They can read your book, they can talk to their legislators, but what is the way forward in your view?
I get that question a lot, and I do a lot of programs, and inevitably somebody asks that. And also inevitably someone will shout out vote. And I think, although I think it's important for people to vote and to vote their interests, it's going to take more than that. It's going to take a lot more than that. And so to think that this can be laid at the doorstep of one political party is wrong. To get this current condition took the complicity of both political parties and then a lot of our institutions. And so then that begs the question, well, what can I do? And I think, what we need is real grassroots type action. And so, you look at the Farm Bureau model and think what you want about Farm Bureau, but they've been pretty successful in achieving their objectives. They have county chapters that attend meetings like Board of Supervisor meetings and City Council meetings that agitate for the issues important for Farm Bureau and their members. And so that's what we need for water quality. We need people attending local meetings and county level meetings demanding decisions that are favorable for water quality. And so, for example, here in Iowa, we have drainage districts. We have over 3,000 of them that manage the state's agricultural drainage infrastructure. And we know that all this tile and other constructed drainage that we have is degrading to stream water quality and the environment in general. Well, all these drainage districts are overseen by the county supervisors. And so when the county supervisors are making decisions about the drainage district, we need people there agitating, say, hey, how does this decision or how does this plan affect water quality? This is an example, I think, of what we need to do. And, this, make no mistake, this is an enormous task, but the water is ours. The water belongs to us as citizens. And, our elected leaders, we need to demand that that we hold them accountable, that they're protecting something that's ours.
How would a citizen learn enough to be effective in that role?
Well, good question. There's, I would want to say read my stuff, of course, but that,
That's right.
that can only be
a good
it.
place to start, right?
There's a starting point, sure. But I think, I am not a professional organizer. That's not what I do. But I think, talking to people that are or know about organizing and how to effectively deliver messages to people making the decisions, I think, is a step. And it's always good when you're advocating for something that you're informed about what the facts are. And so when it comes to water quality, we need to be informed, concentrate. There's too much here to learn it all. 70,000 miles of streams, right? You're not going to learn it all. Learn about your local streams. Learn about, what are the permitted dischargers into the stream? What's the land use in the watershed? Is it impaired for something? And so EPA site, I think it's called Surf Your Watershed, is a good tool for that, to learn about your local watershed and learn your home base inside and out before you go out and start arguing for action on Gulf of Mexico hypoxia.
Right. Well, that is actually, that's a very wise bit of advice. Become expert in our local area. I think a last question that I'd have, Chris, is I can't believe that there isn't a way forward. There are many, many, many entrenched economic interests. There's politics. There's also culture, as you pointed out. There are a lot of forces in the mix. And yet I know, having talked to David Thorson, how all the political every end of the political spectrum up in the Okoboji area got together when the quality of the water there was truly threatened. And they came up with some incredibly creative solutions and basically got the job done, or got the job done much more than it would have been done. And so I have to believe, the optimistic part of me says that there has to be a solution. What are some of the practical steps that we can take that would protect the livelihood of farmers, at the same time protect our water and really protect the quality of our life?
Well, first, I'd say it's not hopeless. And so policy helped create what we see. And so we might also think that policy could help us change it for the better, right? And so it's not hopeless. I would say, for me, right now we have the biggest opportunity we've ever had to transform the farming system here if ethanol would die. And so we need to have the demise of ethanol. We have an area of land here in Iowa that's the size of 20 counties. And so 20% of our land area is committed to growing corn for fuel ethanol. And that has never made sense, but it makes the least amount of sense it ever has right now, because the demand for liquid fuels is declining. GM and Ford have both said they want to be all electric, I think 2025 or not 2025, 2035. And so it's clear that we need to start strategizing about what we're going to do with all these acres that are now in corn. And so I think, that is a discussion we need to have at all levels. And, one thing we see with these discussion of the pipeline issue is that, not all farmers are really in love with ethanol. The thing that ethanol has done is, it created a guaranteed market for corn. And because of that, the price of land in Iowa has increased in lockstep with the amount of ethanol that's been created. And so what we've done is we've effectively made the occupation off limits to young people that would have imaginative ideas about, what we could do with this land. They would want to try different things. Maybe they don't want to do corn and soybean, or they don't want to do CAFOs. They want to try something different, but they can't do it because they don't have access to land. And so I think we really need to try to help young people that want to farm, help them get into it. And, there's various NGOs that are out there that serve that purpose. And so I would encourage you to support that. Support young people that want to farm. And so all the Iowa farmers, they look like you and me, Bob, right? That's
Or younger, right?
and so we need some younger people out there doing this that are going to help drive change. And so again, support those sorts of things. We need to embrace these alternative systems. And so, if you see someone that's raising, humanely or humanely raising chickens and selling the eggs, yeah, you might have to spend a little more for them, of course. But that's how the average person can try to make a difference, because we definitely make choices with our money.
$5, yeah.
And so, I get this all the time, and I tell people, look, I do not have the answers. I am not, I'm a guy that's worked on science all these years. And so, if anybody thinks I'm going to just magically come up with the solutions here, I don't have them, but I do have some ideas about how things could change.
My feeling is that if things are going to change, they're going to change on a good, solid scientific basis. And that would be a basis for public policy. That would be a basis for people being informed. But I really rather like the idea of 99 counties, with people in 99 counties paying attention to the water in their county. Now, water doesn't know county boundaries, and watersheds aren't necessarily neatly divided into counties, but it strikes me that the analogy of the Farm Bureau is really apt, that if we can organize people to pay attention to what's happening in their areas, and then those areas link together, we might have something. So any final thoughts for those who are listening?
Well, I would say, I don't know how many people have heard of the Grange, but the Grange was formed 130 years ago to fight the railroad monopolies. And the Grange was very successful in doing that, and successful at other things. And so the strength of the Grange was that they had the local chapters. There were thousands of them around the country, and their members agitated for issues important to farmers at the time. We need a water quality Grange where the local chapters have great authority to do what they think needs to be done to improve things at the local level. And so if anybody wants a grand idea from me, that's it.
Well, that certainly makes sense. That certainly makes sense. Chris, thanks so much for spending time with us. And I am looking forward to your independent blog. I did sign up. And I'm encouraging everyone to do it. And I can imagine that from your position, that you may well be in a position to really help things turn around. And I'm going to believe that.
Well, that's what we all hope to do, right? We hope to affect the world in a positive way. And so, yes, that's my hope. Yes.
That's great. Well, Chris, thanks so much for being with me.
Okay, Bob. Yeah.